At least right now I'm stable. I don't know about later. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji will start from 8.6.
8.6? Okay.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yugendre Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Shri. Okay. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhesha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukhom Karoti Vachalam Pangum Gangaite Giri Yat Kripata Mahabande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwara. Okay, we are continuing from Bhagavad Gita 8.6. Acronym for this chapter is dead. We saw Arjuna ask 8 questions. You waiting for me? No. So, acronym for this chapter is dead. D stands for doubts. 8 question asked. 8th question was, how can one know you at the time of death? The last verse Krishna says, if at the time of death you can remember me alone, then you will come to me. And 8.6 here Krishna is telling, but if you cannot remember me alone, then whatever you remember at the time of quitting this body, that state you will attain without fail. Now this is where I was asked to begin. Did we discuss this slide, Deepika Mataji?
No, Prabhuji. We'll start from here.
We'll start from here. Okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Chandan here.
Chandan,
Hare
Hare Krishna. So this is the example of Maharaj Bharat. I hope we have discussed. So I will not spend much time there, but he was a very sincere spiritual practitioner who renounced all bodily ties for spiritual advancement, one-pointed spiritual advancement. But when he was doing his sacrifices and meditation in the forest, he noticed that a pregnant deer was being chased by a lion, and she was running. She jumped over the river, gave birth to a baby deer. The lion could not jump. Lion left. She jumped over the river. She was in pool of blood because of because giving birth, and she passed away, and this baby, just born baby deer, was in the river, struggling for life. Maharaj heart became filled with compassion. He went and saved the deer, um, and then he started taking care of the deer very nicely in a way. He became attached to a deer. I'm not going in detail in this story. And one day the deer was not visible. He was searching. Because of the distress, his mind was little bit not in his control. He fell down from a cliff, and while remembering the deer, he died. And then his next birth, he took birth as a deer. It's a very long, very instructive story, but my assumption is all of you know this story in detail. But as Krishna says, devotional service, whatever we render, is never lost, even though it may temporarily be on halt, but it is never lost. So, in his next birth, he soon revived his original consciousness from his previous birth. He remembered I was a king, and he decided that he wanted to associate with sages. Uh, yeah, so um, he would associate with the sages in a deer body, perform austerities, and hear Hari Katha day and night. And in the next birth, he took birth again as a devotee of the Lord, as Jad Bharat, and that third birth was his last life. So, this story is basically, the idea is whatever one remembers at the time of death, that decides our next birth. And this is another story of a king. His name was Puranjan. He was very attached to his wife, left the body thinking about her, became a woman in the next life. And this is the woman who was Puranjan in the previous birth, who was Puranjan, okay, who was Puranjan in the previous birth. And this birth also, she has a husband, and the husband died. And the behind the picture you see a chitta of a cremation, and burning of the body. That's her husband actually. And she was lamenting, she was heavily lamenting because um, her husband died. At that time a brahmana came to her, and brahmana said, why are you lamenting? And she said, well, my husband died. And then brahmana said, previous life you were the king, and you were lamenting over, you remembered your wife at the time of that, you got a female body. Now you are lamenting over your husband's body, and that will give you a male birth in the next life. Why don't you remember me? Why don't you take shelter of me? Whatever difficulties you go through, good or bad, whatever happens, if you constantly take shelter of me, then I, at the time of that, you'll be able to remember me. And she, because, and then this Brahmana showed Paramatma feature. This is actually the Paramatma within the heart of this lady who came out as a Brahmana and gave darshan, and she became self-realized by the mercy of the Lord. So these are a couple of examples, many stories based on whatever they remembered at the time of death, that decides their next birth. Okay, someone can read this.
Yes, Prabhuji, can I start?
Yes.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
So here Krishna is telling to Arjuna, always think of me, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. Means whatever, we have two dharmas. We have Swadharma, we have Parodharma. Swadharma is our duty as a father, a mother, a spouse, a son, daughter, to maintain. This is all Swadharma. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you continue performing your prescribed duty. For him as a Kshatriya, he has a prescribed duty based on Varnashram. Whether we are Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Brahmachari, Sannyas, or Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, based on Varnashram, we all have prescribed duties. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you continue performing the prescribed duties. At the same time, you always think of me. And with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. Now, two things happen. If we do things, whether it is Varnashram, if we do things for the pleasure of Krishna, then the Varnashram will not bind us. Otherwise, Varnashram also bind us because it's either a good or bad karma. They also bind us. So Krishna is recommending you do your duties, but at the same time think of me. And then this way we will be able to attain Krishna at the end of our life. And this corresponds to second chapter we were discussing Gita, that GITA. T stands for two duties. One is Swadharma, one is Parodharma. Parodharma is worshipping the Supreme Lord. So they have to go in parallel. They have to go in parallel. Okay. Someone can read this?
Yes, Prabhuji. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, and he, O Partha, is sure to reach me.
So what Krishna is recommending is one who meditate on Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path is sure to reach me. So this is not easy. This is a very advanced stage of devotion where the mind is constantly engaged in remembering Krishna. Undeviated. Undeviated means without a slight deviation, constantly engaged. He is sure to reach me. Let me turn off the window. A lot of sound is coming. Recently, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he gave a class in that for our Farmington Hills community, and he mentioned that when the jiva in the spiritual world turns away from Krishna, just turn away from Krishna, even a moment of thought, he turns away from Krishna, he finds himself in the material world. So I asked this question to Maharaj, how difficult it is to come to the stage of constant remembrance on Krishna, constant. And how can I ever attain that stage? I asked this question to Maharaj. How will it be possible? And Maharaj smiled. And then he said, well, the mind can be attached, or mind can constantly watch a movie for 2.5, 3 hours without a thought of distraction. When a movie or any mundane things in this world has the power to capture the mind, how can Krishna not have power to capture our mind? And then Mara said, Krishna is Rasa Akhila Murti, or the source of all the rasas. All variety emanates from Krishna, all beauty emanates from Krishna, all activities emanate from Krishna. He is the source of everything. So when the material world can capture our mind, what to speak about Krishna? But it is not easy. Initially, we have to push ourselves in a path of bhakti. We have to push ourselves, means we have to keep trying to become more and more Krishna conscious. And then eventually, when Krishna is very pleased by our effort, then Krishna will pull us towards him. Maharaj said Krishna's pastimes are very attractive. They have the power to attract the mind of a conditioned soul and always meditate on them. But it is not something that is going to come easy. And here Krishna is telling, he who meditates on me, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. He is sure to reach me. This is actually the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Many places this principle comes out of always remembering Krishna. Constantly engage in remembering Krishna, undeviated from the path. Even if you come to the next chapter, which is most confidential knowledge, Krishna explains there the last verse, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, always think of me. Even when you come to 18th chapter, same verse repeats as the essence of Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhava mad bhakto. Become my devotee, always think of me. So that is possible only when we are pulled by Krishna's mercy. Otherwise, it won't be possible. But in order to be pulled by Krishna's mercy, we need to endeavor very sincerely from our side. Otherwise, that stage will not come. That's why there is a path of sadhana bhakti, and there is a path of raga bhakti. Um, s- um, um, Vaidhi bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti means rules and regulations. So because the mind is so much conditioned by attractions in this material world, we have to push ourselves to remember Krishna. That's why we chant a certain number of rounds. We are discussing Bhagavad Gita. We read Srimad Bhagavatam. We associate with devotees. We engage in different services. So although the mind is always running away from Krishna, we are trying to engage in activities which are Krishna conscious, or we are trying to train our mind to remember Krishna. We are trying to take up activities which will help us remember Krishna at least during those activities. Even during seva, the mind can go away because the mind is conditioned since time immemorial by the attractions of this world. But it is Krishna service, all right, let me do it. So it's a constant training to an extent that one is 24 hours trying to train himself that I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure, I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure. My roommate, very dear friend of mine, Shyam Krishna Prabhu, was telling that one time he asked Bhakti Charu Maharaj, how can we do that? It is so difficult. And Maharaj said, well, you have to endeavor. You have to endeavor in that direction. You have to constantly try in that direction. Sometimes devotee ask, why chant 16 rounds? Well, that's a number given by previous acharya, so that number has potency. But the idea is do as much as you can. The goal is to constantly remember Krishna. Even though the mind is constantly distracted, when Krishna sees we are really endeavoring our best, then Krishna's mercy will come. Krishna's mercy will follow our endeavor. If you see the pastime of Krishna, of Mother Yashoda binding Krishna, because Krishna became restless. So Mother Yashoda, it was Diwali the next day. It is a day before Diwali. So if you see Govardhan Puja comes, sorry, not Govardhan Puja. Krishna binding Damodar Leela. Damodar Leela. So it was actually the day of Diwali. It was the daytime, and Mother Yashoda had lot of things to do, lot of preparation to do, and Krishna is restless, and Krishna is going away, and he as he's doing lot of things. Then she tried to bind Krishna, and as many ropes she was gathering, the rope was always 2 fingers short. She gathered more and more ropes, still 2 fingers short. She was running here and there. All the gopis came to witness Krishna getting bound by his mother. It was giving them a lot of pleasure. They all brought the ropes from their home. Still, they are not able to bind Krishna. And Mother and Krishna noticed that Mother Yashoda is sweating and crying so hard, endeavoring so hard. Actually, I am getting a lot of messages today. The it was becoming so hard, and Krishna is not getting bound. Always the rope is shorter. And when Krishna saw, he became compassionate onto Mother Yashoda. And then, without even adding any extra rope, Mother Yashoda was able to bind Krishna. So we are trying to bind Krishna by our love, by our seva, um, by our we want to capture Krishna in our mind. We want Krishna to stay with us, but it will not happen till Krishna allows us. Krishna has free will. Krishna names have free will. Just like Krishna has free will, his names have free will. His names can dance on our tongue, or his names may decide not to dance on our tongue. They based on they have a choice. I mean, whatever they desire, they are supremely independent. The name and the Lord is not different, supremely independent. But just like when Krishna saw Mother Yashoda endeavoring so much, struggling so hard, Krishna allowed himself. Likewise, when Krishna sees we are pushing ourselves so much to receive Krishna's mercy, then Krishna mercy comes. Once Krishna mercy comes, then this stage will come that we can constantly engage in remembering Krishna. So it is very important in this stage when the mind is watching the movies of this material existence day and night with so many attractions and attachments and diversions. One should push himself or herself to become more and more Krishna conscious. Then this stage will be possible. So the rope was always 2 fingers short. Our acharyas explained 2 fingers. One finger represents our endeavor. The second finger represents Krishna's mercy. So our endeavor and Krishna's mercy go in parallel, but it begins with our endeavor. Okay, so that's how only when we attain this stage can we remember Krishna at the time of death. It is not easy to go back to Godhead. I mean, how difficult it is to become the president, how difficult it is to get a mundane position, temporary mundane position in this material world. Now imagine how difficult it will be to capture Krishna. Krishna cannot be captured by Jnana Karma Ashtanga. Bhaktya, Krishna can be captured only by devotion. And that devotion also Krishna has to give us. We cannot, we can try very hard, but our heart will be empty without devotion. Only by His mercy can we capture. And we have to really do what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So we have to be very, 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 very careful while studying Bhagavad Gita, and we should try to follow it. We should try to be very sincere. Then there is some hope that eventually we may get Krishna's mercy. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Okay. Um, okay, we go to the next one. So remembrance of Krishna. Death is a transition to the next life. Death can come at any time. We have no guarantee when death will come. One reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, you are giving sannyas to these 25, 30 years old boys. they should take sannyas in the old age. And Srila Prabhupada said, um, in the Srila Prabhupada said, what is old age? What is old? And the reporter did not say anything. And then Prabhupada said, the reporter was only 25 years old. Srila Prabhupada was 75 years old. So Prabhupada asked this reporter, can you guarantee me you will not die before me? And the reporter didn't say anything. And Prabhupada said, old age is that which comes just before death. So one can be old at the age of 20, one can be old at the age of, one may not be old at the age of 75. We never know. So one should understand that death can come at any point of time. Therefore, and the goal is that we remember Krishna at death. That will only be possible if we remember Krishna now. And we really have to push ourselves to become more and more Krishna conscious. Um, um, Only then we have a possibility of remembering Krishna at the time of death. Okay, now this D E stands for end of life, and A stands for attaining God. Okay, someone can read.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji. Yeah, this is Sridhar Prabhuji.
Srila
One,
Prabhu.
one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is the smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything. So who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature.
One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as one who knows everything. We may be in a lot of anxiety about the future, but one should know Krishna knows about it. We may be worrying um, um, about you know visa problems. There are many problems you may be worrying about future. So these are some of the ways Krishna. See, we chant 16 rounds. That may take 2 hours. That is done. We get up 4 a.m. By 6 a.m. our chanting is done. But then the goal is to remember Krishna throughout the day. How do we do that? One option is we constantly chant the names of Krishna throughout the day. But for many people, till we have lot of mercy from the holy name, we won't be able to do that. Then these are other ways by which we can try to see every situation in our life as Krishna's mercy, or every situation in our life we can try to connect it with Krishna. So these are some practical ways. This is directly Krishna telling. Okay, so Krishna is telling these are some practical ways by which we can remember Krishna all the time. So okay, so one can meditate on Supreme Lord as one who knows everything. He knows everything about the future. So one should know that um, Krishna is in control. Things will happen and he knows what is going to happen. Let me not take anxiety but take shelter of Krishna as he who is the oldest. um, we have a father, he has a father. Then as one who is the oldest means he does not have a source. As one who is the source of everything, we can think of Krishna like that. We can think of Krishna as one who is a controller. Everything is under the control of Lord Krishna and Mahaprabhu. Everything is happening directly under their supervision. So one should have that faith that Krishna is in control, Mahaprabhu is in control. And then whatever situation, good or bad, may come, one should have that faith, well, Krishna's will is prevailing, Mahaprabhu's will is prevailing. Everything is under his control. So who is the controller? then who is smaller than the smallest? Krishna can enter even within, Krishna is there even within the atom. So he is smaller than the smallest. Who is the maintainer of everything? Everything in this material world is maintained by Krishna. So Prabhupada said, Krishna maintains an elephant. Elephant eats 100 pounds every day. Then why can't he maintain us? So he is the maintainer. We stay as long as Krishna maintains us. So who is the maintainer of everything? Who is beyond all material conception? He's transcendental. His pastimes are transcendental. His activities are transcendental. His name is transcendental. His form is transcendental. Whether you meditate on Krishna's form, you read Krishna's pastimes, um, you meditate on Krishna's qualities, you chant Krishna's name, is transcendental. He's beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable. If you want to see Krishna with your material eyes, you cannot do that. We cannot even see the soul. We cannot even see the false ego, mind, or intelligence with our mundane eyes. So he's inconceivable. We can only feel him, we can feel his presence, we can feel his reciprocation according to our desires. We can feel his we can feel transcendental pleasure when we chant Krishna's name or his qualities or his pastimes, but we can conceive him through transcendental senses. But with instruments, microscope, and our eyes, he is inconceivable. And he is always a person. He's not an impersonal energy, anything like that. He's always a person. So one should meditate on Krishna in these 9 ways. He is luminous as the sun, he is transcendental, and he's beyond this material. These are some of the ways in which we can remember Krishna throughout the day. Okay, if anyone has any question, please stop me. If no question, then we can read this one.
Prabhuji, one question. In the first two examples, like Maharaj, not Bharata, though he was remembering that deer, but he did not have any wish to take birth as a deer, right? But still, they are taking birth of deer.
Yeah, because he remembered deer at the time of death, Prabhu. Krishna says, whatever we remember at the time of death, that form we attain.
So, is it not that what we hanker for, we will take something related to those things?
Yes. Whatever we are hankering for, most likely that's what we will remember at the time of death. Most likely. Although Maharaj Bharat was a very advanced devotee who was hankering for the Supreme Lord, he became distracted and he grew his attachment to deer because of his constant association with deer. An association with a material conception, not deer, with material conception, an association with material desires and material conception will result in attachment to that. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, um, ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसां संगस्तेषु उपजायते संजयते kama kama krodha vijayate. So as we meditate on the object of the senses, attachment develops. Anything we see again and again, or any advertisement we see again and again, anything we contemplate, attachment will develop. So he was contemplating a lot on deer and he became very attached to deer. But although he had made significant progress spiritually, his progress was not lost. That's why he was a sage deer and he would hear Hari Katha even in deer body. But still, the thought at the time of death was of a deer. Is it okay, Srinivas Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, that's fine.
You know? Another lesson we learned, it's a long story. I didn't purposefully covered it because I thought many of you have heard it. Another lesson we can understand is material energy can capture us in any form. She captured Maharaj Bharat in the form of a deer, something like that. Okay, so that's why Krishna is telling that one must constantly try to remember Krishna. And see, even if we have some attachment to Krishna, and if we have some attachment to things of this world, we'll not be able to remember Krishna alone. In fifth verse, it says, one who can remember Krishna alone means who has developed virakti or complete detachment from this material world. That person can only remember Krishna alone. Otherwise, based on his attachments, he will have multiple attractions. And then we will be a devotee. At the same time, we will have some material angles to it. We'll have some material angles to it. So it will be possible only if we very sincerely perform sadhana bhakti and push ourselves to remember Krishna. Then there is hope to attain that stage. All right. If no other question, can we read this one?
Yes,
Prabhuji,
Prabhuji.
Just one, sorry.
one thing. That sloka, right? Dhyayet Pumsam.
Yes.
Yeah, is it like from Bhagavad Gita? Which sloka is that, Prabhuji? Number of.
It's second chapter, Mataji. It's somewhere, I think, 52, 53 or 51, 52, around that.
Okay, okay, Prabhuji.
2.50
okay.
something. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Prabhuji, the Bharat Maharaj stories is about the Bharat Maharaj from Mahabharata, right?
No, that's different. That's
Okay.
different. This is Bharat Maharaj, who was son of Rishabdev. Rishabdev is the
Okay.
incarnation of Vishnu.
Right.
He was the
Okay.
eldest son of Rishabdev, one of the 100 sons of Rishabdev, eldest one.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I actually had this mistaken idea for a very long time. I've been thinking that this Bharat Maharaj is like the ascendant of Pandavas, like the first
Raghu
Bharat.
dynasty, yeah. No, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank-
Someone can read this.
Yes.
I can read. Go ahead, Srinath.
Yeah, Prabhuji. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Now, this is there are, see, Bhagavad Gita is spoken millions of years ago. As we see in the fourth chapter, first Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to sun god Vivaswan. So Bhagavad Gita describes three processes. Three processes. One is Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. One is Karma Yoga and one is Bhakti Yoga. Krishna describes all three paths because at all time to come, people will be trying to realize themselves through one of these paths. One of these paths. Krishna gave a hint of Ashtanga Yoga in the sixth chapter, where he says, you go to the forest, you practice celibacy, you chant Omkar, and you control your mind, and then finally you meditate on me within your heart. So that is one way that is recommended for Satya Yoga, where you remember the Lord in your heart and you meditate completely on him. Then you reach the stage of Samadhi. Like, it starts with Yama Niyama, um, yoga, pranayam. So yoga, pranayam are material activities, but they are meant to control the body and mind. And then once they are controlled, then pratyahara, you withdraw your consciousness from the senses, the sense object, and then dharana, then you turn inward, and then you go inside dhyana and samadhi, and then you meditate on the form of the Lord in your heart. Now that's the principle. Now first Krishna is describing how they can attain Vaikuntha Lokas or Brahma Jyoti. Now, can someone remind me if we saw the chart last week, the Goloka chart, material world, Brahma Jyoti, and spiritual world?
Yes, Prabhu.
Probably we saw that 2 weeks back.
2 weeks back. Okay, thank you. So I think he went outside. He's discussing about deal and trip. So um, there we saw some people who are practicing Ashtanga Yoga. They follow yoga, pranayam, pratyahara, and finally when it comes to dhyan and samadhi, they meditate on the Lord in their heart. But there are two kind of yogis. Some meditate on personal form of the Lord in their heart. Some meditate on the white light, the divine light, the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. So there are these two kinds of yogis. Those who meditate on divine light, they enter into Brahma Jyoti, that we saw the transition between material and spiritual world. And those who meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord, they attain Vaikuntha Loka, where the Lord is always a person. Both the concepts are true, um, um, but the light is actually expansion of the light is actually the um, effulgence of the Supreme Lord. So first Krishna is describing how those who are practicing Ashtanga Yoga, how they can attain me, either Brahman or Vaikuntha, how they can attain me. And then if you see, most of the chapters, they begin with Arjuna's inquiry. But if you see the ninth chapter, the next chapter, does not begin with Arjuna's inquiry. We will discuss this point again when we come there. The ninth chapter, after finishing, Krishna stresses a lot upon Ashtanga Yoga here, and how they can attain um, Vaikuntha or Brahma Jyoti. Then Krishna continues and say a devotee does not have to worry about it. And that's where this chapter ends. And then Krishna continues in 9th chapter telling, now I am going to tell you the most confidential part of bhakti, of worshipping me. And that 9th chapter is called the most confidential knowledge, where Krishna expand that don't worry about this path of Ashtanga, but always remember me in my original form. And that's where the 9th chapter ends. Forget everything that I have said. Man mana bhavamat bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru. Become my devotee, offer worship unto me, always remember me with your mind, and do these things. Yet at the same time, Bhagavad Gita is still stay neutral to all three paths, because all three paths are made by Krishna for our progress. Um, Everywhere Krishna speaks about Brahma Jyoti, um, we see Krishna gives his opinion and say, well, bhakti is better, but there is an angle. Just like in 6th chapter, Krishna explained the entire Ashtanga Yoga, and then he say, a yogi is higher than Ashtangi, a yogi is higher than Dhyani, a yogi is higher than Karmi. Therefore, Arjuna become a yogi. Who is a yogi? Mad gatenantar atmana shraddhavan bhajate mam samayukta tamo mataha. Mad gatenantar atma, who always thinks of me within their heart. Shraddhavan bhajate mam, who with shraddha, faith, bhaja, worship me, or perform devotional service. Who worships me with faith, he is the best among all the yogis. So here Krishna is explaining. Now this is actually a mechanical process of yoga. So these people can also attain Vaikuntha or Brahma Jyoti, and that Krishna is going to explain now. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows. This is continuation from 6th chapter. And by the strength of yoga, with an undeviated mind, the mind is engaged in Where is the mind engaged? Engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, referring to Vaikuntha Lokas. So the goal is always remembrance of Krishna. The remembrance of Krishna can be done mechanically through yoga pranayam and then come to dharana and samadhi, or one can start remembering the Supreme Lord right from day one to the path of bhakti yoga. Okay, any question here? Okay.
So, Prabhuji, so this is a continuation, you're saying, of Ashtanga Yoga process of remembering.
Yeah. These 4 verses, yes, probably 10 to 14.
10 to 14. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this may not be applicable to like devotees
Yes.
while leaving their bodies. Like, not necessarily that we have to do this thing. In order to remember Krishna.
Yes. We don't have to do this. And Krishna himself mentioned that those who are engaged in my devotional service, they don't worry about these things. But because Arjun asked, how can one attain you? Then Krishna is mentioning, well, you can attain me through Ashtanga and you can attain me through bhakti. So first Krishna is explaining how you can attain to Ashtanga. And then Krishna also mentions you just render undeviated devotional service and I'm easy to obtain. And then you don't have to worry about this path. But for the sake of completeness, Krishna is describing both the perspective. Is it all right?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. We go to next one. This is very okay.
Question, Prabhuji.
Go ahead.
Even after constant remembrance, due to our karma, if we don't remember at the time of death, so will it be possible in the next life? Will Krishna give a chance for the constant remembrance?
Yes, we continue from where we left off. Krishna says in 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, we continue from where we left off in the next birth.
So, actually, my question is, even after constant remembrance, due to karma, at the time of death, we didn't remember Krishna. So, why can't Krishna remove our karma, so that we can remember him at the time of death?
Okay. Are you referring to the example of Bharat Maharaj? He
Yes,
got attached to deer, taking care of deer, and then he remembered deer.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Well,
because he performed lot of devotional service.
Yes.
Before attachment, right, Prabhuji?
Yes.
So why can't God remove his karma?
Well, one has to be careful. Illusory energy is there. We have a free will. The result will be according to how we use our free will. If we become attracted to illusory energy, then it's our choice. Um, we have to go through the reaction of that.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Today we have performed devotional service in our life. We are chanting also, we are doing many things. But we have a choice now to stop Bhagavad Gita, stop chanting, and neglect all my spiritual duties and go to movies and discourse and do those things. We have a choice. Now, we cannot ask Krishna that why you didn't take me back to Godhead. I performed before. Krishna says, well, you're going to discourse and you're going to these and you gave up my devotional service. So when we give it up, we We are responsible for our choice. Does it help, Padma Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
You know? So we have to push ourselves, and if we are successful, now one thing that is mentioned in Bharat Maharaj's pastime is the reason Bharat Maharaj didn't realize it is Maya's attack is because he has no devotee association. But if
Okay.
Bharat Maharaj has some association of devotees with him, then the devotee would have told him, why are you so attached? Now you are not, even while performing, you are not doing yagyas, you are not sitting for meditation, you are only becoming dear conscious. And then Bharat Maharaj will have realized. Because when Maya attacks us, we never realize she is attacking us. That's the power of Maya. That's why it's called illusion. She creates such an illusion that we think I am rendering devotional service, but actually I am not. And that's where devotee association helps. Because when we see everybody else is so sincere, pushing themselves towards Krishna, doing more and more devotional service, then we think, yeah, I am not doing sufficient. But if you're alone, then we think that, no, I am a very nice devotee. So if we are in association, there is a high chance we will realize our mistakes by the power of association. Does it help, Padma Mataji? Is it all right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. And see, Krishna maintained the credit of all the devotional service he rendered. Although by the measures of his free will, he had to take a dear birth, within two births he went back home, back to Godhead. After dear birth, his next birth was Jad Bharat. Krishna, as Paramatma, told him, you were the king, you made a mistake, you become a deer. Now don't make this mistake again. Always remember me. And he was very sincere as Jad Bharat. At the end of his life, he went back to Vaikuntha Lokas. So, if he would not have performed that devotional service in the first birth as Maharaj Bharat, after two births, he could never make to back to Godhead. He went back to Godhead only because he was very sincere, but he made a small mistake. In fact, something related to this, another point of time, Srila Prabhupada mentions people who were great yogis in their previous life, but who committed some offenses, or maybe due to material attachments, they took birth as animals in Vrindavan. So even the monkey and the insects and others of Vrindavan also very advanced souls. That's why they could appear in Vrindavan, and they are given that chance. So one must understand that whatever service I'm rendering, it's eternal. It's not going to go away from me. Every single discussion on Bhagavad Gita, every single holy name, every single Shravanam, every single seva I do, I'm progressing. Definitely I'm progressing, but I have to be on it. I have to keep doing it for the rest of my life. Then Krishna will pull me if I'm sincere.
Prabhuji, what Bharata should have done, because he was showing compassion for that deer.
Yes.
I mean, at the same time, it's not good to leave that
Yes.
deer, small deer, just like
Yes.
that. So, right,
Srimad
what he should
Bhagavatam
have done.
explains there are thousands and thousands of deers in the forests. The deers are capable of taking care of themselves. He should have saved them. He did the right thing. But once deer is grown up, he's on his own. Then we don't have to worry about bringing the food for the deer, bathing the deer, sleeping with the deer. We don't have to develop attachment to it. Deer is capable to think, but when there is attachment and there is that feeling that I am the maintainer, I am the doer, if I don't take care, deer will die. If, and those, then we are not seeing Krishna is a maintainer, Krishna is a doer. And that's where it's a thin line. And that went, and it just because of his constant association, his attachment grew more and more. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, Prabhuji.
It's karma, right, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it's a karma. It's a karma because I mean, what is your definition of it's a karma?
No, I think what her idea is that because of his karma, this deer has appeared close to him, and he was put in a situation that he had to take care, and then ultimately he fell into the Maya, like that.
Well, it's a very deep subject matter. It may be true, I agree, because we hear from the pastime of Saubari Muni that he offended Garuda, and because of which he was attracted to the mating of the fish and he fell down from his spiritual position. So, one spiritual truth is this, that material energy captures us when we commit offenses or something like that. The material energy becomes stronger. So in that way, I agree with you. It can also be just free will. Like it can be. I always have a choice to come closer to Krishna or to turn my face away from Krishna. That choice I always have. So we should see both perspectives. Is that all right? Okay. Okay. Someone can read this.
Yeah, brother. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy.
So again about Ashtanga yogis learned in Vedas who utter Omkar. Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, people who utter Omkar are usually those who does not have an idea about the form of the Lord. So the only understanding they have is impersonal feature. But people who understand the form of the Lord, they chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Those who don't know that, they chant Omkar. Omkar usually attain Brahman realization. And it Krishna says here, and who are great sages in renounced order, enter into Brahman, desiring such perfection, one practice celibacy. As we saw that these people, they are great sages, they go to Himalayas, they chant Omkar, they meditate on Brahman in their heart, they study the Vedas. It's a dry process, but they do that for a very long time and then they can enter into Brahman. Again, as I said, these four verses are continuation of Ashtanga Yoga. From the perspective, how can they attain Krishna at the time of death? And for Bhakti Yoga, Krishna just says, okay, we will come and it will be clear. Okay, someone can read this.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The yogic situation is that of a detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga.
Thank you, Lakshman. How does yoga situation works? We discussed something we all know, but still we will repeat. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagement. We discussed pratyahara. So we withdraw the mind from all the senses, closing the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart. We saw that in 6.11, how to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Fix the mind on the heart, the eyes on the tip of the nose, fixing the mind of the heart and the life air at the top of the head. So the mind is actually focusing on the Supreme Lord in the heart, and the consciousness or the life air or prana. So there are five kind of airs Prabhupada describes. One of the one prana is the life air. The soul is in that life air, in the prana. So these yogis, we don't have to do that, but what they do is they raise the kundalini or the consciousness from the lowermost region all the way up to Mooldhar, which is the top of the head. And then, um, while thinking of the Lord in their heart, by their yogic mystical power, they break open the skull and then directly transfer themselves to Vaikuntha Lokas. And they have completely cut off the door of senses with the object of the senses. That door is completely closed. The heart is completely fixed on the Lord, and they can enter either Brahman or Vaikuntha. Okay? Someone can read?
Yes, Prabhuji. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, this supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets.
So Krishna describes, if one can remember alone at the time of death, he will come to me. And if one is constantly thinking of me, constantly mind engage in me, he will come to me. And here Krishna is giving an example of Ashtanga Yogi, how they can always think of Krishna and be established in yoga, pran over here, and they quit their body, thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's how they transfer themselves to spiritual world. Okay, continue. Someone else can read.
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pratha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
Now, this is the second option, which is Bhakti Yoga. And Krishna explained one option is you perform Ashtanga Yoga, another is you constantly engage in devotional service. And here Krishna is telling, using the word I am easy to obtain. This is very important. Krishna is telling for these people I am easy to obtain, who constantly engage in devotional service. And if you see, this is actually a very nice and very long topic, but if you remember the 5th chapter, Krishna explains the path of devotion and the path of renunciation are both good for liberation, but the path of devotion is easier. 5th chapter. Same concept appears in 12th chapter, where Arjuna asks, should I worship you as Krishna as I am seeing now, or should I worship you as impersonal Brahman? How should I worship you? And Krishna said, both are good for liberation, but I'm easy to obtain and it's more pleasurable if you worship me in devotion. And same concept. Multiple times Krishna repeats a similar concept. That's why Bhagavad Gita is a book of Bhakti Yoga. At the same time, Krishna does not discard other processes. He says it's there, it's just not easy. And here Krishna is telling for those who are constantly engaged in devotional service, I am easy to obtain. So you can be in Grahastha Ashram, you can be working, taking care of your spouse, taking care of your kids, performing your responsibilities, and still it will be easier for you to go back to Godhead compared to those who renounce, have no families, perfect celibacy, go to Himalayas, very dry and severe austerities, whole day read Vedas, and they can also attain. First, they attain usually only Brahman, they attain a lower destination, and the path is so difficult. But here, Krishna is telling just perform your duties according to your Varna and ashram. As a Kshatriya, perform your duty of fighting, but always think of me, and by that you can attain me. So, what Krishna is telling, perform devotional service in your situation. That's why it is most practical in this age of Kali, because mind is so disturbed in this age of Kali. That's what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us. The easiest way to go back to Godhead. No need to change anything. Just get up in the morning and chant your rounds. But if we can't even do that, now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made the process of Krishna consciousness so easy. No need to go to the forest, perfect celibacy, fix the mind, whole day, Om, chant Omkar, and read the Vedas, and toil and perform severe austerities in summer, hot sun, and winters without proper clothing, and which is only meant for Prabhus only. That's also there. Now, either we go that route and it is so difficult, or you just do what you are doing, no need to change anything, just engage in devotional service. Krishna is telling I'm easy to obtain. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has raised the bar to go back to Godhead from this level all the way to just a step above the ground. But at least that much we should be willing to do. If we are now, if we are not even willing to do that much, then uh, how can we blame Krishna? Then we are responsible for repeated cycle of birth and death. So we must engage in devotional service. Devotional service begins with chanting the names of the Lord on beats, association of devotees, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, sufficient. And if you have deities or a picture, offer the food. That's or do arati to Radha Krishna, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. That would also help very much. Take care of Tulasi. Have Tulsi at home. Worship Tulasi. She will give you a lot of devotion also. So this is so easy. If you do this, Krishna is telling I'm easy to obtain. And whatever else you are doing out of duty, try to think of Krishna and whenever you can, and try to use your results somehow or other of your activities in the service of Krishna. Try to do that. Simple example can be, try to give Krishna consciousness to your kids. Then your parenting is all, you are remembering Krishna, your goal is to give them Krishna, and it's a very nice Krishna conscious engagement. So just do your things, but keep Krishna in the center in everything you do, and do this direct devotional service every day. Then Krishna will be easy to obtain for you.
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection.
Now, we can attain either through the hard process, hard way, which is anyways out of question for us, for most of us, because that option is ruled out. Or we can simply engage in devotional service and attain Krishna. Either ways, if you attain Krishna, then you don't need to come to this material world. And what is the nature of this material world? Full of miseries. This is Krishna's definition or Krishna's outlook of this material world. He uses the word Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. This is a very famous verse. Almost many lectures you will hear this particular verse 8.15 Dukhalayam Ashashvatam being repeated n number of times. Just like Granthalaya is a place of book, Bhojanalaya is a place of food, Dukhalaya is a place of Dukha. We come to this Dukhalayam to get Dukha. That's all. That's all that exists here. But we may not realize it. We may not realize it. But if we practice devotional service, slowly that realization will come. Why it is dukkha? Because everyone actually comes here to gratify their senses. That's all. Everyone is trying to gratify their senses in this material world. And Krishna says, Ehi samspasha cha bhoga dukkha yonana evate. Ehi samspasha cha bhoga, as one gratifies their senses, dukkha is produced. So this is contradictory to our may be contradictory to some of you may have realized, some may have not realized. Still keep practicing devotional service. At some point of time we will realize, because whatever we are working so hard for, all our relationship, everything is taken away at the time of death. And at some point of time we feel the vacancy and the true naked nature of this material what comes out, that nothing is mine here. I'm just a visitor here, and I have made so many ties and so many attachments. It's simply giving me another birth, but there is nothing to live for because nothing really exists. Everything is vacant here. It's just false, so many ties I have made, but I'm on my journey alone. All I'm taking with me is my karma, which is giving me resultant birth. When in the beginning of the chapter Arjuna asks, what is karma? Krishna says, karma is that which will give you another birth. And there is no guarantee of human birth also, so many births. And then we become old, we become deceased, we experience death, and all that remains here is dukkha. So that's the nature of this word. But great souls. So we have to question ourselves. Do we want to be great souls? If our answer is yes, we want to consider ourselves as great souls, then they attain the spiritual world. They constantly engage in devotional service. At the same time, they carry out their prescribed duties, and they easily go back to Godhead. That's what we want to be. Okay. Now here Krishna is explaining why is material world dukhalayam. He just mentioned it's dukhalayam, but why it is dukhalayam, it's mentioned in the next verse. Okay.
From the highest planet. Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Go ahead.
Yeah. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
That's why it's dukhalayam, because Krishna is telling whether you go to highest planet, the highest planet in this material world is Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. In the material world, down to the lowest, or you go to Patalok, wherever you go, Earth is in the middle. The seventh planetary system is Earth. Highest or lowest, wherever you go, all are places of misery. Some people have this conception, I will enjoy when I go to heavenly planet. Let me go to heavenly planets. Krishna is telling above heavenly planet, Mahalok, Janalok, Taplok, Satyalok, they are all miserable. All are places of misery. Why? Repeated birth and death takes place. Everywhere, cycle of birth and death. This is the only common thing in all the places in this material world, that we will have to die. We will have to take birth again. We have to die again. We have to take birth again. For how long? Infinity. Forever. That's why it's called the place of misery. Nobody likes death. Nobody likes death. Nobody wants to be separated, but it's the nature of this world. If you want things to be eternal in this world, then that's not a place for you. If you don't want anyone to die in this material world, then this is not a place for you. Then you are looking for spiritual world. There is no old age. Nobody turns old. There is no disease. Nobody gets disease. But this earthly planet and lower planets, there is old age, there is disease. It's miserable. So that's the nature of this world. So great souls, they engage in devotional service and they go back to Godhead. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. But there is no birth and death in Krishna's abode. If you go back to Godhead, if you go back to Golokindavar. Alright. Now Krishna is telling something about the highest planet, Satyalok. Because Krishna has described the general principle from highest to lowest, everything is a place of misery. And now Krishna is describing how there is birth and death in the highest abode. Because if he explains how the highest planet is also birth and death, more detail, then by default, lowers definitely have birth and death. So he is explaining about Brahmalok or Satyalok. Okay.
By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night.
So Brahma's one day is 1,000 ages. One age is, this is Kali Yuga. Before that, Kali Yuga is 432,000 years. Before Kali Yuga was Dwapar Yuga. It was double of Kali Yuga, so 864,000 years. Before Dwapar Yuga was Treta Yuga, it was 3 times, so 1228,000 years or whatever. Before that, it was Satya Yuga, 4 times Kali Yuga, 1796,000 years. You combine together one Kali Yuga, one Dwapar Yuga, one Treta Yuga, one Satya Yuga, that becomes one age. and you take 1,000 ages, means 1,000 Kali Yoga, Dwapar Yoga, Treta Yoga, all individual 1,000 combined together, that become 1,000 ages. That 1,000 age is Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So this is an understanding of what's the highest planet. But the idea is there is day and night, and Krishna says in Srimad Bhagavatam also, with every day our life becomes, we are one day closer to death. Srimad Bhagavatam explains. With every day and night, with every sunrise and sunset, it says. With every sunrise and sunset, we are a day closer to death. So that's a reality. And likewise, there is day and night and Brahmas. And Brahma lives for 100 years. Each year has 365 days, and each day is 1,000 ages. So Brahma, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, after the entire calculation, he shows, then he says, so Brahma lives 311 trillion 40 billion years. That's why sometimes even Bhagavatam Brahma is compared to Aja, or who has no death, because the life is infinitely long. Now, these 1,000 ages is Brahma's day, but the entire life of demigods is 71 ages. So demigod's life is very short. 71 ages. Means 71 Kali Yoga, 71 Dwapar Yoga, 71 Treta Yoga, 71 Satya Yoga. So in a day of Brahma, these demigod or the universal government changes 14 times. Indra changes 14 times. Sun god right now is Vivaswan, but the sun god position changes 14 times. Moon god changes 14 times. So after 71 ages, the entire government is changed. So that's why Krishna says in the previous 7th chapter, less intelligent people worship demigods, because they also have birth and death, and their age is way, way, way smaller than Brahma's age. Those who worship Brahma, they are also less intelligent, because Brahma also has a time duration. So we should only worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then we go back to Godhead, because there is, in that abode, Krishna says, one never takes birth again. Means once you go there, you don't have to come to this material world again. If we worship anybody in this world, demigod or Brahma or anybody, then there is repeated birth and death. But if you go there, you never take birth again, and you never grow old, you never get disease and other things. All right, someone can read this.
Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated.
Hmm. When Brahma day arrives, all living entities come to being. When arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Now, within a breath of Brahma, people in earthly planets take birth and die, because one breath of Brahma is hundreds of years, because one day of Brahma is millions of years. So because Brahma is on that level and that planetary system, but for demigods, it's only 1/14th day of Brahma is the life of a demigod. So at the end of Brahma's day, whether we are demigods or earthly planet or hellish planet, everybody has to die. That's why Krishna directly talks about Brahma's day arrive. Every living entity, based on their previous life, they they start working. Based on their previous desire, they get those kind of material bodies. But with the end of Brahma's night, everybody is annihilated. This is called partial destruction. Brahma doesn't die, but below him, the higher planets also remain. Maharlok, Janalok, Taplok. But up to Swargalok and below, Bhullok, Bhuvalok, Atal, Satal, Talatal, Patal, Sutal, everybody is annihilated. Partial devastation. Okay, and that's Krishna is trying to give us a feel why we should desire to go back to Godhead. Because if we are staying here, we have to go through these cycles endlessly forever. When we are sufficiently frustrated at one point of time, we need to go back. We need to transfer ourselves to spiritual world. As long as we are living in this material world, there is repeated birth and death and all this and helpless annihilation, and this is what is going to take place. Especially Kali Yuga is horrible. And as time progresses, Kali Yuga become more and more horrible. You don't want to be there. So one should sincerely try to whatever you are doing. And Krishna has made the process so easy. Just do what you are doing, but chant 60 rounds in the morning. Associate with devotees. Read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. What is the difficulty in doing? In such a simple thing, this is a push from our side. And that will make us Krishna conscious. It will help us to transfer Krishna Loka. Okay, someone can read this. After describing Brahma, day, his night, and helpless annihilation with day and night and Brahma's life, now Krishna is telling something very sweet. Go ahead.
Yet,
Yet,
yet
yeah.
there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is.
Now Krishna is giving some hopes. He is telling, yes, this place is Dukhalayam. It is full of misery. It is temporary. But there is another unmanifest nature which we cannot see from this material world, which we have no idea, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is eternal, it is transcendental, and it is somewhere beyond. Where is it? Krishna describes in more detail in 15th chapter about more about spiritual world. But here Krishna is telling, he also tells in spiritual world there is no sun and moon. He also tells to that extent in 15th chapter in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that spiritual abode, come to that spiritual world. But here Krishna is just telling it exists. Have faith, it exists. Have faith, that's our destination. Have faith, that's where we will be happy, that's where we wanna go. Even if you don't understand, just based on Bhagavad Gita 8 chapter verse number 20, 21 and 22, these three verses describe there is a spiritual world which is transcendental and eternal. It is supreme and is never annihilated. So Krishna is giving us hope. Some people reading the previous will be depressed. Are we will be helplessly annihilated. After every day of Brahma, we are helplessly annihilated. And especially Atri planet, millions of times we are annihilated in one day of Brahma. But there is a place where one is never annihilated. Wow, I want to be there. So Krishna is telling, when all in this world is annihilated, that past remains as it is. It is supreme and it is never annihilated. So that's our goal. Okay, someone can read this.
Yeah, Prabhuji. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all pervading and everything is situated within him.
So Krishna is telling so clearly that I have a form and I am formless also. So clearly. And Krishna is telling, although he is present in his abode, means he is in his abode. He is in his spiritual kingdom. He is all pervading. He is existing everywhere also. So as his expansion as Brahman, he enters into every atom. As Paramatma, he enters into every living entity. And as Krishna, he is always performing pastimes in spiritual world. So Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is how can we attain Krishna? He is attainable by unalloyed devotion. That's all. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. So Krishna, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all pervading. And later on, Krishna is advancing Arjuna's consciousness. Right now, Arjuna has not accepted Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Arjuna does not clearly know that. He still have some conception that Krishna is my friend. Then later on we'll see when Krishna shows the universal form. And then later on, and Arjuna slowly graduates and understands. And then when it comes to 15th chapter and Krishna says, well, all that I was talking about previously, he, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's me. I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that becomes more and more clear. So it's very nice how when one is speaking about Krishna consciousness or spiritual word or spiritual life, one should gradually elevate the consciousness of the person one is speaking to the highest stage. That's why Bhagavad Gita is a progression. So here Krishna is telling, although he is in his abode, he is all pervading and everything is situated within him. Okay. Okay, we come to the end of this session. There are two words, the material word and the spiritual word. They are opposite. Material word is dukhalyam. Why dukhalyam? Repeated birth and death. There is old age and there is disease. With every Brahma's days, everyone is helplessly annihilated. Everything in this world is temporary. It's full of misery, constant annihilation. But spiritual world, having gone there, one never returns. Sukhalyam. There is no concept of dukha there. This word is called asat. Asat means temporary. Everything in this word is temporary. That is sat, eternal. That remains as it is. So we stop here. It's 10:59 and we cover the last section, devotion, the next week. Anyone has any question? Okay. Everyone is there. I see Srinivas Prabhu's family, Yogendra Prabhu's family,
Yes,
Sridhar Prabhu's family,
yes, Prabhu.
Devashish Prabhu's family, Lakshmi Mataji. Yeah.
Yes, there, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. My obeisances to all of you. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnavendra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Dandavat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.